Hey, hey, hey. Time for an out of this world story from our space. Some people hide behind lawyers during a messy divorce. Others hide behind excuses. But Sharon? Oh, Sharon went for the gold and hid behind her own child. Today on our space, a kid who got dragged into the front lines of his parents' war and still managed to walk away wiser than both of them put together. Wife tried turning our son against me, so he revealed her affair. Now we're building our lives without her. I'm not entirely sure why I'm writing this here. I feel like my life has been turned completely upside down, and I don't think posting my story on the internet is going to change anything, but I still feel like I need someone to talk to though. The only other person I could talk to about this is already going through a lot too. My son, Alex, 14 male, is already dealing with the weight of a discovery that a kid his age shouldn't deal with, and it's all his mom's fault. My wife, Sharon, 40 female, and I, 40 male, have always had what I thought was a good relationship. Sure, over the years, the spark died down a bit, but I never thought it was in the comfortable way. You know, with time, you both get used to each other, that you learn to love the small moments, not just the big expressions of love. I thought we'd reached this stage where silence means comfort, not distance. I didn't know she was already gone. I didn't realize anything was wrong until I noticed that Alex had started acting out. He'd always been a good kid when he was younger, even when he started getting into his teenage years. He was still the well-behaved young man I'd always known, just a little more independent. But now he was ignoring me, talking back, and showing open contempt for me. It was completely unlike him. At first, I blamed myself. I thought I might have set a bad example or done a poor job raising him. Maybe I was too strict, or I wasn't around enough. I tried everything to fix it. I tried giving him some space, and I tried talking to him more. He didn't give me a chance to connect with him. The weird thing was that he wasn't like that with his mom. He was still the same polite kid he'd always been with her. But he treated me like he didn't want me around. When I talked to some friends about it, they told me I had nothing to worry about. According to them, it was normal for children to shout at their parents or of the same sex as they grew into teenagers. They said it had to do with them seeking independence and starting to view you as competition. That was more than shutting me out, though. It felt like Alex actively hated me. Sharon didn't help much either. I asked her if Alex had said anything to her, and she told me he hadn't. She just said he was turning into a man, and it was normal for him to go through a rebellious phase. When I pointed out that he wasn't being rebellious with her, she just laughed and said that sons and mothers had a special bond. I wasn't convinced by that answer. I knew it didn't bother her because he still treated her the same. But I knew that the sudden behavioral changes in children could be a sign that something was wrong at home or at school. I just didn't realize that she was the real problem. I tried to talk to Alex one evening to see if I could get him to open up. At first, he completely refused to acknowledge me, staring at his phone while I tried to speak to him. I tried to stay calm and gentle so he would open up to me, but eventually I decided to reestablish boundaries. I'm his father after all, and I still have authority in the house. So I told him firmly, but not angrily, to put his phone down so we could have a discussion. I brought up his recent behavior and asked him if everything was all right at school. He crossed his arms and said everything was fine. I kept pushing the subject, trying to see if there was anything he was hiding, but he insisted school was fine. I chose to believe him for the meantime and switched to home. I asked if everything was right at home, and if I'd done something to upset him. He kept his arms crossed and didn't say anything. It seemed like I was getting close to the root of the problem, but he refused to elaborate. No amount of pushing and asking could get a response out of him. I told him I would give him some time to think about it, and I'd talk to him again in a few days. I let him know that I loved him, and he was always free to come and talk to me if he changed his mind. It took about 3 days for him to take me up on that. It was late at night, and I was in my home office doing some reading before bed. Sharon and Alex had both gone to bed early, and I was just enjoying some personal time before I went to bed too. He knocked on the door, and I was surprised to see him hovering there, awkwardly. He asked if we could talk, and I said of course. He came in and sat on the edge of the table. He couldn't meet my eyes, and he was picking at his shirt. It was pretty obvious he was nervous. He didn't speak for a while, and I didn't say anything. I just waited until he was ready. When he finally spoke, he said, "You're right, Dad. Something is wrong. Here at home." I just nodded and said I was listening and waited for him to go on. He asked me to promise to tell the truth. I was confused, but I promised. He asked me if I was having an affair. I was so confused that I was speechless for a moment. I told him I wasn't, and I asked him where he'd heard that. He looked deeply uncomfortable and didn't say anything. It took me promising that he wasn't in trouble and that I wouldn't be mad at him before he spoke. He told me it was Sharon. I felt like I'd been slapped. His mom told him that I was having an affair. Why would she do that? I asked him if that was why he'd been shutting me out recently, and he nodded. Then he told me that wasn't all she had said. He recited a list of horrible things his mother had said about me. There were too many of them to mention, but they mostly amounted to me being neglectful of the two of them, and supposedly mistreating her when Alex wasn't around. Alex had trusted his mom and didn't question what she said. I didn't blame him, though. This wasn't his fault. He was just a kid. Sharon was the one who had taken advantage of his trust in her to feed him lies and turn him against me. I was quiet for a moment while I was trying to absorb everything, and he asked if I was mad at him. I assured him that I wasn't. I couldn't blame him for trusting his mom. He told me there was more. He had to take a few deep breaths, and then he said his mom was the one who was actually cheating. Another bombshell. I asked how he knew, and he told me that he'd been suspecting it for a while. He said he first got suspicious when she started laying it on too thick when she was talking about my supposed infidelity, that it started to feel like she was trying to convince him. Then, a few days before, he'd seen a notification on her phone that seemed odd. She'd snatched up her phone immediately, and he pretended he didn't see anything. The next day, he told her that he needed to install a security update on her phone, and she believed him. He used that opportunity to look for the person who had sent the notification he'd seen the other day. He told me he felt really bad about lying to her like that, but he was confused and didn't know who to believe anymore. I said I was sorry he had to go through that. I really was. He was just a kid, really, and I knew he wasn't the type to lie and go behind people's backs. I was pissed at Sharon for what she'd put him through. He told me that he'd found flirty messages between them. He stopped talking and pulled out his phone. He'd taken photos of her screen to capture the messages. I went through the pictures while we both sat in silence. I understood why he didn't feel like talking much anymore. A lot of those messages had content that a kid his age definitely shouldn't be reading. I had to bite my tongue to keep myself from cussing out Sharon for making him go through this. She definitely deserved it, but I had to think of Alex. He was obviously upset by the whole thing, and seeing his dad insult his mom would only make things worse, especially after his mom had just spent so long doing the exact same thing. I told Alex to send the photos to my phone and delete them from his. I didn't have to tell him twice. He deleted them as soon as they were on my device. Clearly, he was uncomfortable just having them on his phone. I don't blame him. I made sure to remind Alex that he hadn't done anything wrong, and I let him know that I loved him and I wasn't mad at him. I told him to try and get some sleep, and I would deal with everything. After Alex left, I sat down and went through the photos he'd just sent me. Some of them were blurry, but they were still readable with some effort. She'd saved his name as F, so I couldn't tell who he was. I didn't think it mattered all that much anyway. What was important was the fact that she was cheating on me and she'd used our son as a pawn in her sick game. I still wasn't entirely sure what her goal was, why she was trying to turn Alex against me. I've been thinking about that a lot, and the only thing I can come up with is that she was trying to make me out to be the bad guy so she would have an easier time winning custody of Alex when she inevitably left me. Now I'm not sure how to move forward. I know I have to end things with Sharon. The infidelity is a deal breaker on its own. But trying to turn my son against me is completely unforgivable. But a divorce at this time could really affect Alex. I'm scared he might blame himself. I'm completely lost and I don't know what the best move is here. She was laying the groundwork for her exit strategy. Turning Alex against you wasn't random. It was calculated. She probably figured that if she could convince him you were the villain, she'd have a smoother path in a custody battle or at least an easier time justifying her actions to herself. The worst part? She put your kid in the middle of it. Alex is 14. He should be worrying about homework and whether his voice is going to crack in front of his crush, not whether his parents are cheating on each other. Update 1. I wish I could say I had good news, but I don't think there's such a thing when it comes to a story like this. Things have gotten easier, they've just gotten different. I'm doing the best I can to make things work, but it's hard. Our family has changed irreversibly overnight, and I'm trying to keep it from screwing Alex up. I got a lot of comments advising me on what to do next to protect Alex. The common wisdom was to go ahead and divorce Sharon. I'd always known in my heart that this was the right move, but I'd just been scared about scarring Alex. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that living with a toxic mom in a loveless home would scar him much deeper. Besides, I had an example to set. Sharon had manipulated him and used both of us. If I just sat there and took it, then I'd be setting a horrible example for my son as a young man. He needed to see his dad standing up for himself. He needed to see me standing up for him too. So I filed for divorce immediately. I didn't tell Sharon right away though. Instead, I waited for a night when Alex was out of the house. I spoke to his friend's dad and explained the situation. We arranged a sleepover for the boys. He was understanding and said Alex could stay over as long as he needed. He wished me luck with talking to Sharon about the divorce. I needed it. I was glad that I listened to the comment that suggested that Alex shouldn't be around because it was ugly. Really ugly. When I told Sharon that I knew about her affair, she started off by denying it. She actually laughed and asked if I was accusing her without any proof. I showed her the pictures, and her face fell. Then she said that I'd been distant for years, and she had every reason to start an affair. She said even Alex knew I didn't care about them anymore, and that was why he'd been disrespecting me so much. That was what set me off. I wanted to handle this maturely, but she was dragging Alex into this. Even worse, she was referring to lies she'd been feeding him. She was manipulating him and using him as a tool. I hate to say it, but I completely exploded. I told her that Alex had come to me himself. He was upset and confused. Even worse, he was the one who had discovered the affair. I asked her to imagine what seeing these kinds of messages could do to him. She just passed the blame again and said that he had no business going through her phone. I called her pathetic for choosing to blame her 14-year-old son instead of taking responsibility for her actions. She couldn't undo what she'd done already, but she could at least stop dragging Alex back into her own mess. She tried deflecting again, saying that I was the one who was turning Alex against her, and that was why he'd gone through her phone. She was convincing. She even started to fake tears, wailing about how she gave so much for this family, and we both turned against her. I'd never seen her like this. I knew she'd been lying to Alex to alienate him from me, but it was incredible to see her lies in person. I didn't recognize this person. I just let her wear herself out with the crying and accusations. When she realized that I wasn't falling for it, she stopped the act. When she stopped, I told her that I was filing for divorce. She didn't apologize or beg me to reconsider. She just started a long rant about how neither of us loved her, and we were both abandoning her. I didn't know if she actually believed what she said, or if it was just an act to make me feel guilty. I just turned around and left her with her dramatics. When I picked up Alex from his sleepover the next morning, I parked the car and explained that his mom and I were getting a divorce. He took the news pretty well. He just nodded, like he was expecting that to happen. When I was through explaining, I asked him if he had any questions or if he had anything to say. He asked me if we were getting divorced because of him. I assured him that it wasn't his fault in any way. He nodded again and asked if he would have to live with her. I told him that would end up being up to the courts, but I would fight for him to live with me if that's what he wanted. He didn't think for a moment because he said he wanted to stay with me. When things got hard through the coming months because of the divorce, I would just remember that moment to remind me who I was fighting for. Things got really hard. I'm sure no one actually hopes to get divorced one day, but I've sometimes thought about how I'd handle it if the day ever came. These things cross your mind sometimes, especially when you're witnessed a friend or two go through a messy divorce. I always assumed I'd be able to be an adult about it and settle things amicably, even work out a decent co-parenting arrangement with my wife. Of course, I was assuming that my wife would be ready to act like a mature adult herself. She didn't. Sharon made the divorce process a pain for all of us. She fought me on every step of the process, sometimes being difficult just for the sake of being difficult. She dragged her feet when it came to signing the papers, and at one point threatened to leave the house and take Alex with her. All of this was difficult for him to deal with, and my main priority was winning custody so I could get him away from her. So I did everything the right way. I documented everything, and I asked Alex to document everything too. Every text and jab she made, anytime she made him feel uncomfortable in his own home. For a while, I felt guilty, like I truly was recruiting him to spy on his mom. But this was different from what she'd done. Even Alex knew that his mom was suddenly become unreasonable, and he didn't want to live with her anymore. It was heartbreaking that things had come to this, but it was up to the two of us to fight to protect him. In court, Sharon was the perfect victim. She cried and told her stories about how I neglected her and her own son, and turned him against her. It was actually scary to see. All I could think of was how much she must have really hated me for her to turn against me like this. First to our son in private, and now in court. It hurt to see someone I once loved tell these lies about me, but I kept firm and only presented the truth. When it was time for the custody evaluation, Alex told the whole truth. I encouraged him to. He spoke about how his mom had been a kind woman before, and she started telling him different stories about me, how they'd started off small and grown bigger and bigger until he was convinced that I was neglectful towards both of them. He admitted his own behavior towards me after he had believed those lies. Then he brought up the discovery of the affair and how she'd completely changed when I told her I was getting a divorce, the parental alienation, and Alex's own wishes to stay with me. I ended up being awarded full physical custody. She threw a fit, screaming that I'd turned Alex against her. That didn't help change anyone's impression of her. I almost cried with relief. The whole process had been the hardest period of my life, and I was just glad to finally have a legal barrier between Sharon and her manipulation. The first few weeks were weird. Alex seemed to feel guilty about what had happened to the family. No matter what I told him to reassure him, eventually we got him into therapy. I've never been to therapy myself, but it was clear he was going through something that I wasn't fully equipped to help him process. I'll say it's been helpful so far because the guilt seems to be fading and he's turning back into his old self. Sharon didn't talk to me anymore, but she kept trying to get in touch with Alex. I didn't actively monitor their communication, but I asked Alex to let me know if he thought she was saying anything inappropriate. For the most part, she hasn't. I think she realized that her attempts at alienating Alex from me just drove her away from him instead, so she's playing it cool. But she hasn't been completely normal with Alex. For one thing, she texts him very often, telling him that she didn't want to lose him and that he would understand everything when he was older. Alex showed me those messages himself. I didn't tell him to block her or ignore them. I just said that it was okay for him to ignore certain messages if they made him feel uncomfortable, or to wait until he felt he was ready to reply to them. Moving on with our lives has been easier than I expected, honestly. Things aren't the same, sure, but Sharon has made us so miserable in the weeks leading up to the divorce that it was a relief to be away from her. Therapy has been working wonders for Alex, and he's settling into his new life. He's also stopped blaming himself for what happened. I try not to badmouth his mother to him, but I've let him know multiple times that she's the only person who can be blamed. She tried her best to separate us, but she only managed to bring the two of us closer together. Now she's alone and dealing with the consequences of her actions. Sorry if I don't feel bad for her. I'm too busy being the best father I can be. You were absolutely right. Staying in that house under Sharon's manipulation would have done far more damage than words. Your son needed to see you set boundaries and fight for him, not just quietly endure it. No sympathy for her here. She played every manipulative card she had, tried to twist her own child into a pawn, and when that backfired, she still spun herself as the victim. You've done your job, OP. You've shown Alex what it looks like to stand up, take responsibility, and still lead with compassion. That's the kind of example that stays with him for life. What would you do if your kid was stuck in the middle of something like this? Have you been that kid? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. And thank you for joining us today on Our Space. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.